2023 regular session of the Board of Education. This is Joseph Cilio, President of the Board of Education speaking. Thank you for attending in person or through Zoom. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'd like to ask for a moment of silence for the passing of Teresa Pendergast. So can you please say a few words?
Sure. Dr. Teresa Prendergast, she worked here for 9 years. She was our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, and she recently passed away. She went from here to Great Neck Schools, and she really had, she's made a mark in Garden City, so we would like to have this moment of silence for her.
Thank you. Do you notice if today's meeting has been served to all members of the Board of Education pursuant to the requirements of law? Cindy or Tina, can you please take attendance? Present. 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 He's been excused.
Present. Present. Present.
Present.
She's excused for this evening.
At this time, may I have a motion that the Board of Education accepts the agenda for June 2023 regular session as presented? So moved. All in favor? Aye. Are they noticed? None noted. Yeah. At this time, we're going to have SEPTA present the award, the Nancy Meyer Maxwell Award.
Good evening. My name is Erin Diebrich. I'm one of the co-presidents of SEPTA, and along with Savon Chapman and Chrissy Dickey and the executive board of Garden City SEPTA, we would like to congratulate Mrs. Beth Wills on receiving our Nancy Mayer Maxwell Award. This award was created in memory of the former head of Pupil Personnel Services, Miss Nancy Mayer Maxwell, and is bestowed in her honor to an individual who goes above his or her job responsibilities to help the special education students in our district. Mrs. Wills, you are a shining example of a great teacher. In your role as a Garden City special education teacher, you have directly impacted the way our students learn. Your drive to always stay up to date with best practices and to never stop learning as a professional has benefited our youngest learners. You have been a consistent champion for the students in your classroom year to year. Your innovation in creating programs like the Green Team has provided more ways for our students to be integrated and included within their school building and amongst their peers. Mrs. Wills, your ability to work collaboratively with your fellow teachers and administration has helped open new opportunities for our children, and you have left an indelible mark on the students who have sat in your classrooms. Our district is very lucky to have you. Thank you for being such a strong advocate for our students with disabilities. Thank you.
Congratulations, Ms. Wells. Well deserved the award. Congratulations. So we have several recognitions for this evening. I wanted to start off before we go to our athletics, two of our students. One is Maria Santos. Maria, come on up. She is the winner of the National Merit Scholarship, and Maria was chosen. She was chosen from a talented pool of more than 15,000 outstanding finalists in the 2023 National Merit Scholarship Program, and finalists are judged to have the strongest combination of accomplishments, skills, and potential for success in rigorous college studies. Congratulations, Maria. We also want to recognize Julia Shershiver, if you can come up. And I know Dr. Gordon and Dr. Foley, they're also here. So she's soon to be a senior. She placed 4th in the Grand Award at the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair. And after winning the first place Grand Award at the New York State Science and Engineering Fair, Julia was invited to attend the Regeneron International Science and Engineering Fair in Dallas, Texas. She competed against over 1,600 students from over 80 countries. Her innovative project focused on developing a method to treat iron toxicity on eukaryocytic, if I said it properly, I don't know, cells potentially benefiting chemotherapy patients. So as part of a special award at the ISEF, Julia received a full scholarship to attend the 6-week summer program, Aspiring Research Community at the Missouri University of Science and Technology. And I know her teachers, both her teachers, Dr. Gordon and Dr. Foley, they have guided Julia at every step of her project, from the initial idea, the experimentation, to writing and presenting. So I know they're here also. Congratulations, Julia, and congratulations to both of you as well. Okay, next we have our athletics recognition, and it really brings me tremendous pride to shine a spotlight on our exceptional student athletes and the remarkable coaches who have had an extraordinary spring season. The caliber of talent, dedication, and sportsmanship displayed by these young individuals, they've resulted not only in local accolades, but also prestigious state recognition. So, which underscores their unwavering commitment to excellence, not just out on the fields, but also in the classroom. Our coaches, we see what they do out in the with our students out in the fields, and they really lead with their heart and expertise. And they've been instrumental in shaping these athletes' skills and character, both on and off the field. So I really want to congratulate our student athletes and their coaches and staff volunteers, who you really see them in action if you go to one of the games. They give it their all. So I would like to call up Mr. Ramirez to introduce our students and coaches.
Good evening. I'm going to cut my speech short because obviously Dr. Kami got to look at mine before she read hers. So it is an honor to be here. I have to say, I've said it all year. I know in Garden City, the level of excellence, academic and athletic, it seems to be a norm. I can tell you as a person that's here for the first year, it's not normal what goes on here. Truly not. Most schools' athletic programs end in May. deep into June, we're still playing on the fields, both lacrosse, track, and multiple other sports. And it's a tribute to the work ethic of the coaches and the athletes and the support system these athletes have in terms of school and parents at home. As a parent of 3 athletes at 3 different levels, I know the amount of time that it takes and the effort and the consistency from a parent from the time that they pick up a sport to get them to this point. So it is a tribute to the parents, the support system, and to these kids and what they do day in and day out. Focus on athletics, focus on academics, focus on being good people. They listen to the adults around them, they trust, and the proof and the final product is excellence and championships. And as I said, that's not a norm, not to the level that it happens here. It's very nice that we take moments at board meetings like this to honor our top of the top athletes. And I say that in terms of county champions and state qualifiers, and we have a number of them here. I'm going to start off with girls track. If I could have Coach Messia, Coach Skrivanik, and Coach Filippi, if you're here, and Rory Heslin come up. Rory Heslin, as she comes up, I'll tell you a little bit about her. Rory is a field hockey player in the fall. She ran winter track and qualified for the states. She dabbles in track. And I laugh because she's a two-season state qualifier. She was a county champion in, I want to say, the 600 meter. She also ran at as part of the relay team. Rory ran at nationals this weekend, a phenomenal year, phenomenal season, state qualifier. This is Rory Heslin. We also have members of our male boys track team. I know Coach Dreyer could not be here. I don't know if any of the coaching staff is here. We have members of the team. I will call out names, and I'm going to go off my paper. I can't see that far, so I don't know what we have here. I'm going to tell you. We had Owen Holtzman was all state in the shot put. Alex Coletti was a county champ, broke a school record, seemed like every other week in various events. He ran at the state tournament and was also a member of the the relay team. I believe it was a 4x400. With him were Joseph Bonomi, James Egan, John Byrne, and Connor Escofrey. Those are our state qualifiers in track. Come up. And they traveled to Middletown High School to compete against the rest of the state for 2 days. Our next group is our girls lacrosse team. I know that we have Coach Rogler and Coach Leak here, as well as maybe a couple of members of the team. They had some other obligations to players, but if you're here, if you could please come up. Our girls lacrosse team had a phenomenal year. They competed against nationally ranked teams all year, went on to win the Nassau County Championship, beating Long Beach. And then beat West Islip in the, beat Long Beach in the Nassau County Championship, West Islip in the Long Island Championship, traveled up to Cortland. And what I will say about both lacrosse teams, you talk about adversity and challenges leading up to the state championships. Everything that you could think of was thrown at them. Air quality, schedule changes, buses not wanting to stay, everything, and they stay focused. This team advanced to the New York State Championship. They were down to 2 out of hundreds of teams across the state that compete in Class B championship. And what I actually, some people may not agree, I liked is when they left the state championship, they were not content with finishing second. I know that they'll be back there next year to finish unfinished business. We're very proud of them. Our girls lacrosse team's New York State Class B finalists. And then we have our boys lacrosse team who were Nassau County Championships, defeating Calhoun, went on to beat West Islip in the Long Island Championship, then beat Niskayuna in the semifinals, and then went to beat Victor in the state championships, a sweet victory. They defended the New York State Championship. They are 2-time champions. So you talk about just elite on top elite. It's one thing to win it. It's another thing to repeat. To watch them all season long compete again against nationally ranked teams, test themselves, not back down from anyone. The time, the commitment, the hours that they put in, the focus, These programs here, I'll tell you, as close you will get to a college level program in all three of these programs at a high school level. And that's really why they are where they are in terms of championships. Coach Fennell and his staff, second to none. Again, the detail, the video breakdown, focusing on individual players, developing them on the field, off the field, the vision of where they want these players to be 2 or 3 years from now, the opportunities that all these coaches open up. For me, it's been a pleasure all year. Our boys lacrosse team, repeat state championships, no pressure, coach. We'd love to see a three-peat. Congratulations. I just want to thank the board and Dr. Sinha and the administration. It's been a tremendous year for me. Been doing this for plus 20 years, and I can say this is the best year of my career. Not because of the wins, although those are nice, just the support and the great support system around here. So thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, congratulations again to all of our students. What a great way to end the year with all these achievements. So next, what we have is that we wanted to have Ms. Cardella give an update on our math. If you remember earlier in the year, we had devoted one of our work sessions on our adoption of our new primary math resource. And we said we would give an update at the end of the year. And Ms. Cardella will actually give you some good information. What it'll show is that we're holding our own with our mathematics. We're pleased so far with what we see. We're on the right track. And some of the data that she has collected, she'll share with you. And those include, satisfaction data, looking at our students and teachers, how are they adapting to this new resource that we have, the level of knowledge in the classroom from our teachers and administrators, the support. There's district support. Are we providing enough resources for our teachers with what they need, from professional learning to materials and supplies even? And how are we seeing the primary resource being implemented in the classroom through observations and being in the classrooms? And then we're also looking at our student achievement data, what we've measured this year, what we've found, and then the analysis that we'll continue to do into next year. So with that, I want to turn it over to Ms. Cardella.
Thank you, Dr. Sinha. I was asked to do a brief update, but I'm not typically brief, so if you just let me know if I need to speed things up. What I did in order to show you all the data, quantitative and qualitative, that we look at throughout the year and have looked at, is I created an infographic to sort of capture some of the highlights. And I started with some data from the teachers. Now, before I go into some of this data, I just want to say that the teachers are the ones who implement this change. So hearing from the teachers and working with the teachers and getting their feedback has been a crucial step in this process and has led to the success. And there were a bunch of teachers actually here tonight and some that are still here that have helped me out a lot. So thank you for that. It is important to hear and learn from people implementing. Before I go over this graphic, I just want to share that at the end of the year, what we have done already is we met as a group of grade level teams, representatives from each building. So in grade KN1, we had representatives from Homestead, Locust, and Hemlock. who came together, we reflected, and we talked about what revisions we want to make for next year already. And we have already updated our scope and sequence, our pacing guides, our assessments, our assessment timeline. So we've done a lot of work meeting in grade level groups to plan for next year. This graphic right up here represents responses from teachers who did the K-2 full adoption and early adopters grades 3 to 5. And this is that perception teacher reaction data that Dr. Sinha was talking about. So these are 6 critical areas of math: number sense, fluency, communication, conceptual understanding, application, and language that we really want to focus on and support our students to develop and enhance in general. And we asked teachers on a survey, what did you observe about students' performance in the following areas? And we specifically asked them to compare it to previous years. And that's really important to us. We have a lot of skilled educators and educators that have been in this district for a long time and have been teaching math for a long time. And we wanted to they're the ones that are with the students for every day. So we wanted to ask them, what are you observing? And what we would ask our students at this point in time, and maybe a couple teachers in the back would giggle a little bit, but we would ask, what do you notice? What do you wonder? And that's one of our instructional routines. So whenever you're looking at equations or data, that's something that we're actually ingraining in our students to be wonderers, observers. And just looking at this data, I hope now, given some time, you've observed some key pieces. So better is maroon. And so a high percentage of our teachers in all categories have said that they observed students doing better in these 6 areas. And in many of the areas, it's significant, the percentage. So I just want to pause for a moment and just let people observe that. The gray is the same, and same or better, those are both good. And the light gray is a low percentage said worse, little slice of the pie in fluency. Anytime you have something like that, you got to ask questions, what, even if it's only a couple people saying that, you got to dig, you got to figure out why. And we've actually had some questions about fluency, and in what I mentioned before, in our scope and sequence planning, we actually planned for more strategic embedding of fluency, picking out specific centers that we want to do with students, timing out when we want to give fluency assessments. So we've already took a little bit of this data and did a little work to react to it. So this is the first part. The second part of the data that I'd like to show today is from our students. So we had early adopter classrooms in grades 3 to 5, and we figured we would get results from our grades 3 to 5 students. So we sent them a survey, and 128 of our students in the early adopter classes completed the survey. And we wanted to see their reactions about math. What are they experiencing? How do they feel? And their confidence. And I have to say, if you look at the 2 distributions on the left side, especially how confident are you in math? That definitely brings a smile to my face. Confidence is one of the #1 elements that you want in order for a child to be successful in math. And these are our young 3 to 5 impressionable students. So for them to have this level of confidence at this point in time, that's just setting a stage for success. And then, of course, I want everybody to love math. I wish those 25% was a little bit higher, but we're going to get there. Secretly, what I just really want to make sure is that our students aren't creating a false identity of themselves in an early age that they're not math people or math students or math minded. And I feel as though some of this data is helping us see that, like, maybe we're on the road to making sure that our kids don't have those false perceptions about themselves or would create that. Dr. Sinha talked about in our implementation, you want to make sure that your students are having the experience that the new or the shift in instruction, the components that you want to observe. So what better way than to ask the students, did the math that you did this year, did it make you think? Did you learn from your peers? Did you share your strategies? And the students, 128 of them out of 128, over 100 said yes in each of those categories. So that's pretty powerful. Students don't typically lie about that data, so we could take this to heart. But we really wanted to zone in on those 3 areas because we believe in making our students mathematical thinkers. Is so important to get them to think. And we do value them learning from their peers, and that's a district priority, is really enhancing classroom discourse in all subject areas, not just math, and sharing their strategies and learning from their peers. There's a lot of discourse, and anybody you've talked to who's either in the classroom or an administrator observing the classroom can attest to the amount and the level of discourse that has risen through the implementation, even just in this first year. So some student reactions. These student reactions are from teachers sharing with us what they have heard from students. I didn't ask the K-2 students to fill out a survey. So I asked the K-2 teachers to tell me what their students have been telling them. And I love this quote on the left, and I have the teacher in my head saying this, but she just completely amazed that kids actually just want to keep adding and subtracting 2-digit numbers in May, super excited about it. She was one of the teachers that said at day 40, I remember this from her, that the students were more fluent at day 40 than day 100. And day 100 is a day that, it's a remarkable day for us. So we remember that day. So it's a benchmark in the math world. And the middle quote, what you see is a teacher expressing what her students are saying about math being their favorite subject. So that definitely touches my heart deeply. I was a secondary math teacher, and I always wanted to learn about my students. And the one question I asked, of course, was what's your favorite subject? Unfortunately, I didn't get many students saying math. And I want the secondary teachers at high school to give a survey at some point, and I want those numbers to go up. I want our kids to actually enjoy math, see the benefits of the math, and still be confident with it. But I do want to point out these instructional strategies have made a significant difference for our students. And some of them are just noted up here. There are warm-ups. Which one doesn't belong? Number talks. What do you notice? What do you wonder? These happen within our, in the beginning and within our warm-up and within the lesson. So we've embedded a lot of research-based instructional routines in our math classrooms, and the students are loving them. And then this last quote, I mean, how could this not touch your heart here? There has been a positive change in the ways students see themselves. They truly see themselves as mathematicians and enjoy talking about math. So this is, and it's not just these 3 quotes. I'm hearing this pattern is when I'm speaking to the teachers, this is what I'm hearing them say. Another important piece of data that you definitely need to look at is student outcomes, student learning data. And we're definitely taking a lot of data around student outcomes. NWA, as you know, is our universal screener. NWA gives us our RIT scores. The RIT scores tell us where students are ready to learn. And just to give you a little bit of information about this piece of data, it's comparing last year to this year. And the gray bar is the observed growth from the fall administration to spring, and the maroon is fall this year to spring this year. So as you look at the data, you can see that I'm just looking at the observed. I'm not talking about the met growth yet. So the observed growth, you could see there's a dip in K and first grade. So of course, anybody looking at data, that's the number one thing you got to do. You have to ask questions. You have to know what your data represents, and you got to ask questions about it. My first question was, why do we have a dip? What possibly could have caused this dip? How big is it, and so forth. So I did a little searching, and I looked. Once you have a question, you got to go deeper. So a deeper dive into data. You look at the domains. So then I looked at all our instructional domains, and in KN1, I found our geometry domain took a dip. And because geometry took a dip, the average was dipped. And then I looked at our scope and sequence, and I recognized that unit 7, which is our last unit, is geometry and measurement. And the assessment was given before the completion of that unit. So to me, that makes sense. So the RIT score, ready to learn, it's telling them they're ready to learn the geometry. So teach them the geometry. And it's like, we got you. We're teaching it unit 7. And in first year implementation, like I said, we made adjustments to scope and sequence. It does take a little bit longer to get through all your material your first year, because you're learning the new resource and so forth. So we don't like to take the entire year to get through all the curriculum, but this year, especially with first year implementation, we had to take more time, and we've adjusted that a little bit. But that was one explanation of that dip, but we'll keep an eye on that. The kindergarten, first grade, and second grade MET growth. What that means is it's a MET your growth, a percent of students who met their projected growth. And that is the description I put at the top. So you get a projected growth that is an average growth for all students. So if you were a student and your projected growth is 10, you might make that, but every student who's like you will also get 10. And what that really means is 50% of you will make it and 50% of you will not. Now, that's a hard conversation. Well, it's an easy conversation to have with parents whose students are in the top 50%, the ones who will make it. It's a harder conversation to have with parents when you're in the lower 50%, because the growth projection is based on the average. So that's something we, in second grade, we went up to, this number is 51 here. So we are at the average. So that's a good target number. We definitely want to get higher in our red bars. In the other, we want to get closer to 50, but we have had growth. So more of our students than in previous years are meeting their growth projection. Still have room to grow. That's that NWA data and a little bit of an explanation of it. Fluency is a very important piece of math, and there are actually required fluencies for grades K to 6, and they're in the little chart there. These are standards that are the New York State Next Gen standards, and it tells you at what grade level our students should be mastering or being proficient with these fluencies. And this, we just started this year taking fluency data. So we're instituting some fluency benchmarks. This data that you see is on the grade 1 fluency of adding and subtracting within 10. But I wanted to take it at the end of the year, this year for kindergarten, just so that I can see where our kindergartens are at, even though they still have a whole nother year to become proficient with it. I still wanted to see where we are at the end of grade K, and then see where we get to at the end of grade 1. So we're developing this assessment system that will show a progression over the years. We're going to add other grades to this and just continue to build it. So this is a work in progress, but we want to target and have data on our fluency requirements for our students. Another very big piece of data, and sometimes goes overlooked because it doesn't have numbers, is student work. Student work is one of the most effective pieces of data that can actually inform instruction. And I just chose 2 students and 2 of the same examples of student work just to point out a few pieces of what student work can tell you. So we have one student here who I love said division is easier than multiplication. But sometimes students actually do stop there in their explanation. They just say it's easier, or I just figured it out. But this student kept going and said he could draw 7 groups and put 1 in each until he got to 63. So the reading a student's response is what really helps you to see if a child actually has an understanding of the math. So this child was able to explain that. And we do these writing to explains throughout the year. And the goal is to help our students become better mathematical thinkers and mathematical communicators. So I want to highlight, this is the first one happened earlier in the year, and this is later in the year. And this is fractions. So a couple things. So this student explained the answer and she gave 3 justifications. My answer is correct because 3/4 is closer to 1 whole than 3/8. I also noticed that 3/8 is not even past the halfway mark. So using benchmarks, pretty good. All right, not only that, she just wants to tell us she knows, or he, she, I don't know, knows a little bit more than that. When your parts are bigger and you shade some of them in, the closer they are to 1 whole, and has a model to represent it. That shows significant conceptual understanding. This is grade 3. This is fractions. Conceptual understanding of fractions is extremely important for our students to master. Okay, next student. So I'm showing you this one. The first explanation here is a work in progress. Yes, because you can always use division. Well, yes, you can, but why? You know, and a piece of feedback a teacher gives is, how are multiplication and division related? How do you know that? Or can you, draw a model to help you explain that? But then I had to show this because this is his next writing to explain. And he has a model here, and he does some work over here, which we know what this is, but he actually doesn't explain his thinking using this sort of shortcut. He actually explains his conceptual understanding. Okay, so he says, I know my answer is correct because I knew that 4 is a greater denominator than 8. Now you might be reading that and it's like, what? 4 is greater than 8? So the only way you really know what the kid was thinking is you actually talk to the kid. Now his model shows me, in a way, I think he knows what he's talking about, but he needed to say the size of the pieces that are created because 4ths are greater than 8ths, the size of the pieces. But he's coming along and, he's going to get that feedback from the teacher and being able to communicate and really understand his math. And then look, he shows the example, which represents great thinking. And also I made 2 fraction bars and 3/4 was greater. So there's a lot of great thinking, a lot of communication, a lot of precision with language. And there's great feedback that we can give to help students grow. And that's why I just wanted to show you some examples, because looking at student work is so powerful. And I hope you got that from the few examples that I showed. And then just overall teacher feedback. Teacher feedback has been extremely positive. And whenever teachers have given feedback that we need to, Christina, I think we need to do this. Christina, I think we did it. It's like, just tell me, keep telling me, we'll make adjustments. But a few pieces I want to point out here. Teachers are learning too. We are lifelong learners. Elementary and primary teachers are teaching all subject areas. So how great is it for a resource to actually support, as what they're saying in the middle, their own mathematical understanding? So just helping you, because of the progression of the learning, it's helping you become a better math learner as well. I know this is really small, but I just had to write it there because the teacher specifically said from the very first unit, there is a deliberate progression to the lessons that allow for greater understanding. Couldn't say it better myself. That is the resource. That is the beauty of this resource. Each lesson built off the other and gave students a strong foundation for the concepts. That is why we chose this resource. So I'm glad that that is what's coming out in the feedback. And then the other piece here, I'm now incorporating this type of teaching in other areas. I told you that before. We're seeing more classroom discourse all over in other interdisciplinary courses. There's a lot of coordinators here. Actually, I think they're all here. We have discussions about our content areas and our instructional strategies and our subjects and our content. And I just had a discussion with the social studies coordinator about economics and how do we link that to coins and what could we do, like project-based learning, interdisciplinary learning. And we're having those deep conversations. There was an art project that was done for kindergarten in the beginning of the year. I said, can you use the language from geometry with the shapes, the dimensions, and also positional words, because that was part of our unit that we were studying. And so we're having these amazing conversations. And then this last quote all the way to the left corner, I just think it sums it up. The biggest successes I had this year were children's overall enjoyment, and they understand the math curriculum. So that's my update. I don't know if I made 5 minutes, but all right.
No.
No,
No.
depends on how you look at it. I hope
Appreciate-
that was okay.
Appreciate the update. Maybe just one question from me, if you don't mind. I know not to drag it out, but we're talking about excitement versus proficiency. I know it's great that everybody's excited. I'll probably preempt somebody in the audience asking this. How do we know they're as equally as proficient, if not more proficient, despite their excitement? My kids get excited about a lot of things, even though they're wrong. So I definitely feel the excitement in my household, but just trying to make sure that that matches also with the proficiency that they've had previously.
Yes, I think there's a question in there, but
Yeah,
I'm
I guess
okay.
The question is, I'm more focused on the proficiency, although excitement's important. How are we judging that? I guess, again,
Yes.
of what metrics and
So, yes, we are also concentrating on the proficiency, but I do have to say that building confidence and not feeling like, when you're attacking a math problem that you might fail at it and failing forward is a really, is traits that we need to develop in our children to gain even higher proficiency. But for proficiency, we are looking at, like, I showed that NWA data. We're going to continue to look at it. The only thing with NWA data is it's norm reference, it's not criterion reference. So we have to look at criterion reference data as well. Criterion reference means related to the standards. So we have unit assessments. I didn't put our unit assessment data up here, but we have these all-in-one data sheets where all the teachers put their unit assessment data in, and they look at that data and they have each actual item that's given to students is tagged to a standard. And we're also like making the blueprints a little bit more robust and tagging them to a student learning goal. And then next year, actually, we want to do even more with looking at student work and looking at assessments in teams. Teachers are definitely doing that individually, looking at their student assessment, reacting to their student data, pushing their students to proficiency, giving them that feedback. But we actually want to try to, as a year 2, for work in a team and talk about student data and proficiency as a whole. So we monitor that data, and we'll have the state data at some point, but remember, it was K2 adoption, and it's not really the best because it's lag data, but our unit assessments measure proficiency on standards.
Oh, Christina, could you just talk about the baseline data that you've been able to collect for this year that you'll be using for in terms of for future that'll help you gauge that understanding of what Mr. Cilio is talking about?
Sure.
Proficiency.
So, well, this year was our first year that we actually have had common unit assessments in K to 5. So you have to start with that in order to have baseline data. If you, in the word common just means everybody's given the same assessment. So in order to compare a cohort of students, you have to have the same assessment. So you have to start there. So we started building those assessments. So assessment development this is year 1. We have unit assessment data from individual teachers. And then you saw the fluency data that I was showing here. So what we are doing is some pre-post tests within 5, within 10, within 20. We're also doing story type problems, which is word problems. We're collecting data on baseline data on those as well, because they're story type situations in addition and subtraction that students need to master K to 2. So we're really looking at priority areas and just gathering that data. But year 1, we developed the assessments and we took some baseline data. So we have sheets on all our data. I'm just trying not to show it. All right. So, this is where I took all the data on students' fluency assessments, grade K, grade K and grade 1. And then when I was looking at the GEO, I was taking down their unit assessment data. This is me looking at their NWA data and explaining some areas. So we do a lot of this kind of data analysis with teachers, and then also as administrators looking at it and seeing how we could support teachers.
And maybe one question, because I think I've asked this before when maybe it was a year ago or sometime in the last year, when we're rolling out the new program, it's not comparable to the NWEA, right? Just in terms of tracking, you can't compare data from the NWEA directly to illustrative math, at least the way I understood it.
I
Can't
don't
compare scores from illustrative math
so
assessments to the NWEA.
So NWA is a norm reference, so it doesn't tell you like by standard, like how our kids are doing on the standards. But we can use, NWA is a lot of times used to help us figure out with our MTSS process. It kind of gives us a red flag saying, okay, here our students are getting lower RIT scores that say they're ready for instruction. RIT scale is lower than the norm, and we've got to address those issues and help those students to get them on target. So we use NWA a lot in our MTSS process. We also use it at the higher end to see, oh, whoa, these students are excelling. And what can we do for them in enrichment? And then our unit assessments are used for our proficiency data.
So maybe just one last question for me. How do we know if our baseline students are doing better or worse? Is that what you just showed us, or is that directly comparable? Because the question I always have is the program working? And if it's not, why not? And what are we doing to improve it? But if we're slipping in our baseline overall, that's not a good thing, right? That maybe means the program's not working as we had hoped.
Yeah, so I think it's a difficult question to answer in education about whether like a program is working. I wouldn't even call this a program. I would call it a primary resource because it's a resource that's supporting our curriculum, and teachers are also making shifts in their instruction, and then we're developing our own assessment system. So there's just a lot of factors that happen in education. We don't keep in a statistical study, you can't keep everything constant and everything controlled because you're working with a group of students. So what you really want to do when you're evaluating is look at your data and make sure our students are growing, that we have growth, that we have proficiency. And no matter what, if that's not the case, we need to change something. We need to adjust somewhere. So that's how you have to look at in education. It's more holistic. And then our resource curriculum is one small part of what could possibly be making a positive impact or a negative impact. And we would look at that. But we'd look at assessment, we'd look at instruction, we look at the feedback that we're giving to students. It's
If I can just add something to that, is that anytime we bring something in, you have to, in our field of education, you have to look at, number one, you can bring something in if you don't provide proper training. It doesn't go, you're not going to see the full value. And there is a component of our teachers learning, right? So I think originally when we had talked about our, and I'll focus on right now, K1 and 2, where we fully implemented it, there was a tremendous amount of professional learning that took place this year and a lot of coaching for our teachers. And you have to give that time, because you're not going to see that in 1 year. That's why it's important to get teachers' input on the resource itself. Is it working? Is it not working? And you don't wait till you're failing. You are making adjustments as you go along, continual adjustment, because you don't wait. Is it going to fail? If the teachers' reactions were very different right now, that would be a signal for us to say, gee, wait a minute, what is going on here? Why is it, what's the issue here? The other thing is, I don't remember if you recall earlier in the year, there were some, things we had to make. I remember when Christina, when you came back in January, there were a lot of things that were created. There was things created over the summer, but additional resources that the teachers said they needed. So we made sure we provided that for them. So it's not so much, here it is, just teach it. That's not going to give you the, what we're looking for. And that's not best practice.
So just in that vein, I think you'd mentioned supplemental, I don't know if it was instruction material or some other supplemental resource to help in this. Is there anything that you've identified since the last time we spoke that we need to address in terms of resources or supplemental primary resources?
I don't know, we don't need to address, but I think it's good to know that we have some supplemental resources that are supporting the math instruction. First in Math is a digital component that we're getting to know even more, and that's supporting with fluency. We had a lot of parent feedback for additional practice in the beginning of the year, and we shared our IXL resource with parents and how there's numerous practice problems there, but also videos to support the kids and the parents who want to help their children at home, as well as worked out examples. That's also part of our suite of resources. And then we also have a resource for our high advanced math students called Beast Academy, which is sort of our supplemental advanced math resource that our students also use. So we have a suite of resources, not just this primary resource that has been that we're implementing.
The teacher data that was collected in the pie graphs at the beginning of the presentation, what was that based on?
This teacher data is based on those who actually fully implemented and whether they were early adopters. So if they did a full year implementation and what they observed in their classrooms from their students' performance compared to previous years.
So it was what they observed and not what was recorded in, like, let's say, a common task, a common rubric, common assessment. And given the I'm sorry, I'm having a very, very hard time digesting that this is the first year of common assessments. So I don't really know where the foundation for the data that was really used to bring the program in came from. So I apologize if that's more of a comment than a question, but if it's something that the teachers are observing, is it something that they have in conferencing notes with the children, something that's reflective in the children's SMART goals that they set up quarterly, or if they do it monthly, however the children set up their goals and then meet with the teachers. So I'm basically looking for, like, kind of something that we can sink our teeth into.
So no, this data is not from a record sheet from the teachers on all these observable characteristics. There's unit assessments. There's those writing to explain that I showed, and those writing to explain give teachers a lot of data on students' conceptual understanding, students' language, students' communication. So that helps them make those determinations. Their observations of what their students are doing in class, which they are observing, but maybe did not note down, which I hear you saying would be some data to write it down, but they are noting it.
Oh, right, almost the equivalency of a teacher assessment notebook type of thing.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying
Okay.
on that, but we don't have that practice in play at this point in time.
I guess the other concern that I have is that, how is this reactive for all of our subgroups? The children with special needs, our high flyers versus, our struggling mathematicians. How is it that, how is this data broken up into those subgroups?
So this data specifically is not broken up to those subgroups, but we do have the ability to do that with NWA and with unit assessment data that teachers can look at. We also have the MTSS process that supports our struggling students, and we have math specialists that look at, they have a spreadsheet, I don't have it here, of all the data from the students on unit assessments, prerequisite, NWA, couple administrations that they use that data to determine if students need support. And then they speak to the teacher and look at the unit assessments with the teacher to determine what areas of support. So we have that process for our MTSS for our struggling learners.
Okay, and I guess I just, okay, last year, any grade, the three standards that were the thorn in your side, that no matter how much you banged your head against the wall, that you would go to sleep, you wake up, these are the three standards in front of you. The ones that are just absolutely paralyzing for the kids. How did this program address those three lowest standards?
I'd have to look at the data and get back to you on that. I don't have that in this. I don't have that in this PowerPoint, but what I do know is that what you're talking about is part of our summer curriculum. What we want to do, there is an assessment rigor component of creating a document that has the questions from the next gen, which is the first year that the next gen has come out. And we want to take those assessments and create, like, by unit, how our students did in each of those questions, so that we can have that at our fingertips and the teachers can have that in their fingertips when they're actually engaging in the unit and where they fall in each unit. And I could show you that at a later date, or an example of that, so that they'd be able to speak to that. In our year two, we said we want to get teams of teachers looking at student work and having those conversations directly aligned to what you are asking about.
Okay, I guess, and just one other question, how did the parent survey kind of fare with this, you know, their acceptance overall? I know that the board had a lot of pushback at the start of the year, and I'm just curious as to how many parents responded and what their overall take was.
Yeah, that's a good question. For parents, we had a lot of informational sessions, and at each of the sessions, when I came back, I reached out to subgroups of parents and worked with them and met with PTA to either develop resources similar to these math resources that we put up here for our parent community, and talking to parents and asking them for feedback of what the population needed. I didn't, and that might be a misstep for me. I didn't hand out a parent survey recently at the end of this year, but that is definitely something that I think would have been a smart move. So I welcome that idea, and it's not too late to get some feedback from parents. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Thank you, Mrs. Cardell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You want me to continue with my report? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Cardella. And I think that parent survey would be a good idea for us to send out this year. So a couple of other items on my report, just wanted to mention again, we honored our retirees earlier this evening. We had 25 individuals who we honored. And, they were, again, I had said this earlier, collectively 514 years, believe it or not, altogether. There were folks who were here from 5 years all the way to 38 years. So we were very, it was a nice reception. And it was always nice to honor our folks that have given so much to our district. Let me see, on our website, what we have put on our website is a summer page for some activities. I think Ms. McGuire is going to put that up for us. And this page is for parents and our students to access summer learning. We put in, for literacy, mathematics, and then also some digital tools that we have available.
Good evening. So this is located off of our main page, and it's shows up on every school page under parents as well. If you click on menu and go down to the parents section, it shows up here under K-12 summer resources and assignments, as well as on the school building pages. You'll also find this is a very interactive Canva created by Lauren Kaufman for some different choice boards, game boards, activities, information for summer literacy. Summer math activities are here from Ms. Cardella. In addition, Stratford and Stewart School have created some additional resources that you can access by clicking on this link here. There's a letter from both principals detailing some of those resources and links embedded in that. Below that, we've also compiled, just so that it's kind of one-stop shopping for parents. I know in previous years, the English department posts their reading assignments on that page. We've compiled them all here. They are also still available on those department pages, but we've put them all together on this page as well. So you have 6 to 8 resources for English, math, world languages, 9 through 12, all of the summer reading assignments for math, social studies, science, and all of these links are clickable and take you to that page where all the assignments are listed. We just thought that this was one way to kind of help make even the transition to the website a little easier, because I know a lot of people are still navigating that process. So again, it's under the menu down by parents, and it's right here. We floated it to the top of every parent menu. So it's either the first or second item there. And it's pretty much titled the same thing. I may have missed one and put K-12 afterwards, but it'll be pretty prevalent on the page there. That's it.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. I don't know if did you have any questions?
Yeah, Ms. McGuire, can we, from the new website, can we get metadata on how many of the parents use it or students use it?
Yes, I
Clicks?
can get that from them.
That,
Yeah,
I think that would be helpful. to
absolutely.
us. And
Yep,
if you could
I'll reach
get back-
out to them.
Yeah, get back to us in September on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Will do. And we also will be doing more of a push of notifying parents more. We'll do kind of more of a campaign as it gets closer to back to school to remind people to download the app and how to access things. So we were discussing that because they'll help us with some marketing materials for that to share it out.
Thank you, Ms. McGuire. I just have a couple more items. I wanted to bring up, with our world language program, we offer German in our district, and that's always been a challenge to find. Staffing has been difficult. We have a wonderful teacher, and we see, I don't know, Mr. Pino, you would remember every year we've had little bit of difficulty with staffing. And this year, Ms. McLaughlin has been working with both the middle school, high school, and looking at that staffing, and it goes to, it's more than a one, this year was 1.2, next year's 1.3. So, we will be studying world language and come up with some recommendations for the board, but I wanted to bring that to the forefront. We have a full-time teacher, but very, very difficult to find a part-time teacher. And so we're going to continue to look. And for this year, I think we'll be fine, but I definitely think it's something that we need to keep in the forefront because it's a language that we value in our community with offering German. So we'll bring that back, but I wanted to mention it this evening. And then just a couple of items we have on our agenda. We have an appointment for Joanna Rogusich, who is here with us. She's on the agenda. We're recommending her for the coordinator of science and engineering, K-12. She comes to us from New York City Department of Education, Fresh Meadows, where she served as a Regents Earth Science teacher, general science teacher. She's been a science educator for over 15 years, and we're looking forward to having her join our district. And then we have a couple of other items on the agenda. We have 3 policies. There's adoption of board policy 6640, which is on inventories. And this is a new policy. We discussed it at the last meeting. These are all second readings and they're up for adoption. That it's a policy that we needed. So this was, it was specifically addresses tracking inventory of equipment and high-risk supplies, and it's required by State Education Department. We also have another policy on student transportation. This policy has been revised to include transportation for any students in foster care. And then the conflict of interest policy. This policy has been updated to satisfy the findings in the IDEA monitoring review. So we have added that language into that policy. We also have several appointments for lead teachers in English and in world language, both for the middle school, high school. There is a whole list of summer curriculum writing projects, and you'll see majority of it has been devoted to actually mathematics for this summer. But we also have writing, science, there's world language, special education, our new course on journalism, guidance, technology, and there's also high school social studies. There at this time of the year on the agenda, we have several agreements, special ed agreements. So you'll see there's quite a bit of those agreements on the agenda, along with some bid awards. And what else? This is our last meeting of the year, so I definitely want to take some time to thank all of our parent groups. They do so much for our district, from grants to the time they give us. We really are strengthened by their support, the PTA, the special education PTA, TMA, Friends of Music, Friends of STEAM, and all the other friends of groups. So thank you for being partners with us. And since this is our last meeting, I also want to take an opportunity to thank Dr. Canoni. This is his last meeting here. As he leaves us to lead Carl Place. They're going to be in good hands. And thank you, Dr. Canoni, for your work. And we wish you the very, very best.
Thank you very much.
I also want to acknowledge my assistant, Ms. Morris, who's there. This is also her last meeting. And you see next to her, Miss Tina Papalardo, who will be taking her place. And Cindy has been working very closely with Tina on this transition. And Cindy, we will miss you very much. And thank you for all you've done for our district. And, just on a personal note, this year has been extremely challenging for me. And the support I've gotten, thank you, from staff to our community. It has been a difficult year. I've experienced some losses, and to be in a place where there's so much support within the district and within the community, I'm really, really appreciative. So thank you for that. And And then we have our, the June 21st and 22nd, they're a half day for primary and elementary schools. Our senior prom is June 22nd. And our last day of school is June 23rd, followed by graduation on Saturday. So which will be, we'll see, Mr. Steingrubner with the weather. We'll have to see.
Make it happen.
Yes. So that's my report. Oh, the treasurer's report.
Yeah, would you like to do the treasurer's report?
Thank you. This is for April 2023. We had a cash balance at the beginning of the month of 45,247,921. During April, we had receipts totaling 7,050,549. We had disbursements of 9,788,369, leaving us with a closing balance of 42,510,101. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the Board of Education on any of the agenda items?
None.
At this time, we've designated time for the public to address the board and any action items or agenda items or topics concerning the school district. For most of you, I think you've been here before, faces in the crowd. If you have a question, please come up and state your name, your address, and your question.
Good evening. My name is Leo Stimler. I live at Huntington Road in Garden City in the Mott section. I've been there for since 1979. Two of my children went through the school, your school system, and I have 3 grandchildren now going through. I wanted to talk about the Sands Casino at the Coliseum site, but before I do, I wanted just to mention a couple of things. I attended on May 30th, the Garden City Science Research Symposium, and I was so impressed, and I just wanted to say that. I saw over 100, I think there were 100 exhibits, and the breadth and the depth of those exhibits was really something to say. So, and it wasn't just seniors, there was juniors and freshmen and sophomores. It was a wonderful experience. So I want to congratulate Dr. Porter and all the science teachers and all the staff and the administrators and board that support this. I also wanted to mention yesterday's Newsday. I hope my math is right here. It seems to me that they said very good things about Garden City's, the results of the advanced placement exams. I'll let you math people check me later, but there are over 100 districts here, and it looks to me like Garden City did very well. They said an achievement score of 1.26 or higher would indicate that the district ranked in the top 20% school system statewide. Well, it looks to me as I read this that if I'm reading it correctly, that we did much better than that. So again, congratulations. And just before I talk about the Sands Casino, I attended school plays. I saw the school orchestra at Christmas time. I heard you speak, Dr. Sinha. Wow, I was so impressed. Gosh, unbelievable what's going on here. Okay, what I wanted to mention was I wanted to talk just for a moment about the Sands Casino. I wanted to give you some thoughts. I would ask you over the summer to please look what's going on in the newspapers about the casino, the Sands Casino that's scheduled to be, they want to put it at the Coliseum site. Our Garden City mayor says that it's going to bring 20,000 people every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I would ask you to think about what that does to your students here. Think about our roads right now are already clogged. Those athletes that you honored earlier tonight, how do they get to their games in other districts and other communities if with clogged roads, with 20,000 people coming every day? And in addition to getting to these other venues to participate in these activities, what about the air quality? What does that bring to the community? And then, do we have enough water, underground water, to support 20,000 people coming in here a day? And by the way, if I may say to, I think it's Dr. Porter, and to the science teachers, boy, if any of the students ask you for some suggestions on what kind of research for next year's symposium, boy, I think the Sands Casino would bring a lot of interesting stuff. Do we have enough underground water in our aquifers to supply 20,000 students? And in addition to that, think of all the other things. Think about other places where, in New Jersey, where there are casinos. Think about the drugs, the DWI, the compulsive gambling. Think what that is. It's only a little more than a mile from here, the Coliseum site. Think about how that's going to impact our students. So I would ask you if you would consider that over the summer. And I would hope to hear from you something about that in the fall. I would also ask if you're convinced before then, there are 3 people I hope that individually you would consider sending an email to. Those 3 key people right now. I think the Nassau County executive is gone. He sees the millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars that the Sands Casino is bringing, and he's gone. Forget him. I don't know about the governor. I don't know. Her husband works for a casino type casino, not the same one, but I don't know how that impacts. But the 3 key other people are our state assemblyman, Ed Ra, our state senator, Kevin Thomas, and our Hempstead Town Supervisor, Don Clavin. So I would hope that if you're convinced, as over the summer, as you read newspaper articles and you listen to the media about what's going on with the Sands Casino, that you would send an email to them and express your concern. And then I hope as a board, you would consider saying something as a board when you come back together in the fall after you've reviewed it. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stimler, thank you for coming to our meeting. For those that don't know, Mr. Stimler was very active in the Eastern Property Owners Association, so we appreciate your comments. Mr. Stimler, just one question for you. How are your grandkids doing with illustrative math? Mr. Stimler and I go back 20 years, so thank you for coming.
Are there any other questions in the audience?
Hi, good evening. My name is Joseph Fusco, 162 Meadbrook Road in Garden City, New York. First time I've ever attended a board meeting. Nice to meet all of you. Dr. Sinha, how are you? I'm here for my 5-year-old son, Anthony. My concern with him is that he's a special needs child. It just breaks my heart. He is in need of an ICT class for kindergarten. And
take your time.
Yeah, that class no longer exists. And I'm here to find out why. There's other programs. There's self-contained classes. There's a SOAR program that I heard did not go so well last year. And, he's the type of boy that these classes, I think, were meant to help. And my wife had a conversation with pupil personnel today. Very few answers to the questions that she was asking as to what's the reasoning behind this? Is it just budgetary? Why are these classes being cut? I know that SEPTA has raised this concern and has put out a formal letter on their website as to what's going to happen. And I think these classrooms not only teach are beneficial to the kids with special needs, but are also beneficial to the other students. And I guess the reason I'm here is to find out whose decision within the school district was it to cut these classes for the incoming kindergartners. And I don't know if you guys have that answer.
The programs are set based on what we see in terms of the enrollment. I would have to look into it further for you, Mr. Fusco, and
Yeah.
get back to you. But the programs, they shift based on what the needs are. And that's how, especially particularly with the special ed programming, that's how, the CSC makes those determinations. So every year there are shifts with our programming based on the cohort and the needs.
Yeah, I understand that. I think part of the issue is a lot of the, I know my son still has a meeting tomorrow. A lot of these things are just still up in the air, and it's very difficult for parents who have children with special needs to go through this, to be put in sort of this limbo. You have children with IEPs that were already created for next year, and then how are those documents shifted? Because those are legal documents. How do those get shifted if they were supposed to be in an ICT class and then the board, the school district is still formulating their plan? So that's one of my concerns. The other concern that I have is I just have a feeling that from the kids I've met in the community, I coach a lot of sports, as you can see, and even the 5-year-olds, I just feel as though Garden City School District is not doing enough with respect to helping or recognizing the children with special needs. I feel like there's a lot more that are being swept sort of under the rug. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I just feel as though there is a need, and the numbers that were given to my wife today are just like, there's a self-contained class. I think it's like a 12-1-2. There might be 4 or 5 kids in that class. There's a SOAR program. There's only going to be 4 kids in that class. And for me to think that there's only like 8 or so kindergartners or less than that who have special needs, it just seems inaccurate based on the fact that the amount of special needs children in other districts have been growing increasingly. And Garden City seems to be lowering their numbers, especially in light of that. This class is one of the first like COVID classes. I know my son went through hell through COVID to, finally determine, what his issues are. And he's the type of kid who's like thriving now. And I just feel like to put him in he might be a square peg into a round hole is not going to help him. And I would just like to see the school district do a little more with respect to the special education. So that's my piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions in the room? At this time, we have a personnel action. Whereas the superintendent of the schools has preferred charges against the employee named in the executive session pursuant to section 3020 of New York State education law. And whereas the Board of Education has determined by a vote of a majority of all board members that probable cause exists for charges preferred against said employee by the superintendent of schools, be it resolved that the employee named by the executive session is hereby suspended with pay pending a hearing on the charges and the final determination thereof. May I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the personnel action.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Are there any noes? None noted. To make more efficient use of the meeting time, the Board of Education authorizes the use of a consent agenda as part of the meeting agenda. Consent agenda will allow for one motion to approve multiple items and such identified items on the agenda. President of the board will ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda and will ask board members if they wish to have any discussion or clarification on specific items contained within that consent agenda. Following the discussion, the board will then vote on the consent agenda. In addition, a board member will request to have an item removed in the consent agenda in order to vote on the motion separately. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes business of the board items K1 through K6, personnel matters L1 through L14, business office matters M1 through M32, curriculum and instruction matters N1 through N5, and special education matter items O1 through O37.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Are there any noes? None noted. At this time, we have another addendum. May I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the following resolution? Whereas on April 18th, 2023, Board of Education approved the award contract for Garden City High School and Middle School masonry reconstruction as follows. Project Garden City High School masonry reconstruction. Garden City Middle School masonry reconstruction. Masonry reconstruction contract MRC1, contractor Cornerstone Restoration Group Corp. Base bid MRC1 200,000, add alternative one bid, alternative one 15,000, total bid $215,000. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education approves the contract for the above award and authorizes the board president of the district clerk to execute the contract on its behalf.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Are there any noes? None noted. Are there any new business items from the board?
None for me.
Are there any from the administration?
No.
Announcements Thursday, July 6, 2023, the reorganizational meeting and regular session of the Garden City High School will be on Tuesday at 8:15. I'm sorry, Thursday at 8:15, Tuesday, August 22nd, regular session at the Garden City High School at 8:15 PM. At this time, may I have a motion that the Board of Education adjourns to executive session for a confidential matter?
So moved.
All in favor? Aye.